Okay, hi. I am Megan Jones. I am a student at DePaul, and this is for my social studies methods class. This will be the way I'm going to be reflecting on my field experience work. And so, right now, I'm going to be reflecting on my first visit, which was January 20th. I'm doing observation hours at Hamilton Elementary in Lakeview, Chicago. Just a little background on the school. It's predominantly white and affluent, so it's definitely a different environment than a lot of schools in CPS that I've been to before. They have a lot of resources, a lot of technology, and yeah, so I was really excited just to see how they were going to utilize that to teach social studies. And so the 20th was my first time going in for social studies. I'd been in the school before, and I'm in a third grade classroom. And I just kind of was like getting a feel for their social studies curriculum, what they were focusing on. They had been working mostly on geography and the different regions in the United States. So they had done the Northeast region and the Midwest so far. And they were about to start the Southeast region. So I'm excited to see that next time I go because I'll be there when they start to introduce it and when they work on a project for it. So that will be exciting. Um, Today, January 20th, they did a social emotional learning task. So, not quite like your typical social studies, but the teacher said that the school really emphasizes this. It's really important for the kids to do, and they also like really like it because it tends to be like less conventional and more like group based than other worksheets and projects that they've had. And so, yeah, so it was exciting. They watched a video about like this fake scenario that would happen in a school lunchroom, and they had a boy or two boys walk in to two girls sitting at a table, and the boys dumped milk on one of the girls' heads, just to be mean. And the kids were kind of working on empathy, so they tried to figure out like how could someone in that classroom have shown empathy towards the girl who got poured milk on, and why were the boys doing that, kind of like their motives behind it. But mostly they were working on identifying feelings, like by body language, by voice, and just like facial expression. So that was interesting to see. Again, I'm in a third grade classroom, so some of them were like totally in tune, and it almost seemed like they were speaking like from personal experience. Like they were like, when people are mean to me. So a lot of their conversations were about relating it to each other, or relating it to themselves rather. And and then they sort of broke off into small groups, and they were encouraged to create like a real life scenario. A lot of them just used the situation that was in the video, which was totally fine. Some of them like sort of made up their own, and they acted it out in like an improv skit. Like they didn't write scripts or anything. They were kind of just like going with the flow, which I thought was really cool. It really allowed for differences in each group. Like I was walking around and I was so shocked. Like some groups were talking about this and others were like on the different side of things, but it was really like, in my opinion, a great way to let them have a little creativity and choice in their education. And then while they were doing their skits, they had to switch roles with each other. So for instance, the groups that used the situation in the video that was shown, everyone had to have a turn at being the girl who got milk poured on her head. And then at the end of this activity, we came back together in like a whole classroom discussion about how like each of the student felt in different roles, and then they were sort of encouraged to think about like how could you have made the situation better and have made it so everyone felt included and and happy, and no one felt sad. And so a lot of students suggested things like, we could have took her to the bathroom and helped clean the milk off her. A lot of kids were kind of just like hit a wall and were like, he just shouldn't have poured milk on him, like on her. Like that's just how we could fix it. So it was interesting that a lot of students like couldn't think of necessarily a solution, like if that still did happen. Um, and so yeah, so it was a really interesting lesson, and it was really great to see this kind of discussion happening in a third grade classroom. Because I feel like it's such a preventative strategy almost for bullying and things like that, and it's just also like so beneficial for the children to have a foundation of empathy and how to relate to others, and also just like how to help others, like such a basic concept, but that's not often like explicitly taught in schools. um it definitely like wasn't what I expected going into the classroom. Like this happened during their social studies time in the day, and so I was like definitely a little like, this isn't social studies, but like reflecting on it and thinking about it more, it's kind of like very important work to do. And it does kind of fit into a lot of the themes that we've talked about in class and what's been mentioned in the textbook, just because I'm thinking like how to have a civic conversation with someone and express your views, and like how to relate to others who are different than you, things like that, that is like you need to know to learn more serious social studies curriculum. So I feel like little activities like that actually are so good for the long run. I'm just thinking like if I had if my grade in elementary school had been exposed to those sort of activities, maybe our conversations on harder things like the Holocaust or, like the Civil War might have been a bit more like deep, because we knew how to like express our feelings when something's uncomfortable, and we like knew how to help others. So yeah, so I was definitely impressed, and the classroom like is so well managed, and the students are very like well behaved, and also just like excited. Um, it's definitely a privileged community in school, so I'm really more interested in like seeing more social studies content taught, and just seeing like what sort of lens they teach it out of, and what perspectives the students have, and I mean if they have any. So yeah, so next week hopefully they'll be starting the Southeast region, so I can see about that and how they talk about how they integrate culture and into geography, because that's something the teacher said that she really likes to do, instead of just focusing on like the states, to focus on like like attitudes and like ways of life. So that's what I'm really excited to see in the future. For questions about my first visit, I definitely was wondering if the teacher was assessing the kids and how they like comprehended the social emotional learning task. It didn't like seem like it was. She actually was out of the room for a decent amount of it. But I'm sure that she like knows the students so well. I would just be curious into like in the future how she would know if the lesson was effective or not. And yeah, I'm definitely just like curious too as to how she's going to tie culture in the Southeast region into the actual geography of it, and if she's going to talk about current events at all, because there's a lot of happenings in the Southeast region that could be relevant to Chicago students. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'm very excited, and I had a great first visit.